Negin is an Iranian refugee who fled her country when she was not even 18. She is one of the victims of child marriage.
I was giving birth to my own child, but I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I'm a child. Like, I needed my own parents to take care of me.
I know, for example, that at least culturally, also in Afghanistan, when you get married, it's supposed to be one of happiest day of your in your life, and everybody's happy, drinking, dancing. Were you happy? Do you remember that?
One day I go to the school and I have some of my hair out. And because I kind of got a warning about it prior to that. They took one of those razors that human cut your hair with. They just cut they shaved this part of my head, and like as of punishment or whatever they called it. And they thought that makes me, cover my head a little bit more, because I didn't listen to them. And then the day after, I go to the school having this part of my head shaved by myself, having the rest of my hair out.
And what about your classmates and the rest of the students? Were they happy to follow those rules, or were they questioning it? This is another picture that I would like to show you. Ministry of Migration and Asylum of Greece.
This is where I work. You want my reaction?
Yeah. What are the most valuable lessons that you have learned being a refugee? Hello everyone, welcome to the Untold podcast. I'm very happy to have with me Negin Torfinezhadian. Negin is an Iranian refugee who fled her country when she was not even 18. She is one of the victims of child marriage. Negin currently she works with the Ministry of Migration and Asylum as a mentor, and she works with vulnerable individuals. Negin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for your invitation, Freydun. This is an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm good, stressed.
So tell me a bit about your country of origin. I know that you were born in Iran. So if you could tell us a bit about your country.
I was born and raised in south of Iran, in a big city outside. I was born and raised there. I did go to school. I also finished my high school. So when I was at the age of 17 something, I finished my high school. I studied digital photography in high school, in a vocational school, and that's it.
So tell us a bit about your family, if you would like to share something like about how many siblings do you have, and family, anything that you would like to share.
My family are residing in Iran, in my city, south of Iran. I have my parents. I have an older sister and a younger brother. I'm the middle child.
Okay, very good. And what about your country? I know that, for example, Iran. I've been there. It's a beautiful country, and the food is just great. So tell us something that you really appreciate about your country.
I do appreciate the culture, the history mostly. I do appreciate the history very much up to some point. And I love Iranian people. They are very warm, very welcoming. So if we just factor some of the problems that do exist in the society, I think people are very nice and very good. I do appreciate the food. I love the food. And yeah, there are countless of stuff you can like about Iran.
Very interesting. We will definitely discuss about the social issues that you point out. But at this point, I would like to still ask you some more questions about your personal life, and then we can move on. Is that what kind of child were you in the family?
The rule breaker. I was the rule breaker. I was the kind of a child that, how can I say, I was culturally inappropriate. Whatever I wanted to do, it was for boys. So if I wanted to do, for example, skate, was for boys. Guitar, playing guitar was for boys. I loved martial arts. I do have a black belt, uh, and but yeah, I tried so hard to do that because when I wanted to start it, everyone was just like, "It's for boys," because girls are not supposed to do karate, martial arts. So that kind of a child I was.
And would you like to share a good memory that you have from your childhood in school, with family, anything that, something that you remember?
So I cannot really point to any specific memory I have in my mind right now, but I would say the best part of my childhood was when I could finally do martial arts and karate that I mentioned earlier, because it wasn't something easy to achieve. So, I mean, if you ask a European girl, maybe it would be like something very easy. Like you don't even, they might not even appreciate it anymore. It's taken for granted, these things. But to me, it meant a lot because I did try very hard to convince everyone to let me do that. So each day I was doing karate. Each time I would, get a certificate. I would go for a race. I would just love it.
Oh,
So
very
that's
nice.
like a very important chapter of my life.
I see. You weren't allowed to, let's say, like, go at the gym and work out because of being women. Is it something that was specifically with your family, or is it an overall issue that exists in Iran, you think?
You were kind of allowed to go to the gym. I mean, so many people would go, so many girls, but not martial arts. Like it was mostly you could do easy stuff, easy girly stuff, not karate, not things that I remember they even used to tell me that if you get hurt in karate, for example, you cannot have a child in the future. These things out here. So even if my family, my mom specifically, even if she was okay with letting me do martial arts, she would still be like, "What would people say?" So in south of Iran, especially, these things unfortunately still going on. People do care about what other people would say or think.
I see, I see. So you finished high school in Iran, and then
Yes.
I suppose that you left Iran. So if you could tell us, what was the main reason? Why did you have to leave your country?
I left because I wanted to have a better life, first of all, and a free life. Unfortunately, I mean, martial arts was one thing I mentioned, but there were so many things that I, as a woman, as a girl, then I couldn't do. Like, I couldn't decide for my life. The very, very basic matters, which is the way that I would dress up, the way I would decide for my own body, was not allowed. So I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to live all my life like, being in a cage. I wanted to explore more. I wanted to live a life I wanted to decide and create for myself. Like, when I was going to school back in Iran, one thing that was very difficult to me, it was like a torture every morning, was to pass by the a teacher, let's say we had there, and she would like every day check on us if we had our hair out, or like if we
At,
had our clothes
in
tight.
school, like when
In
going
a
entering
school,
it in
like
the school?
entering the school, we had to pass by a very specific principle. So it was like they had to tick if you're
So
if you're proper.
can you describe for me and also for our audience, like, what were the certain rules or policies, or like the way that you had to dress So could you picture that for us? Like, what did you have to? How did you need it to look like exactly?
What we have like very specific school uniforms, and where I'm from, my city, the weather sometimes the heat would go up to 50 degrees. It's just very hot. Like now I'm whinging about the heat in Athens, but it was way worse. And in that weather, we had to wear some very dark uniforms covering up all our body, like long pants, which were not supposed to be, even a little tight, or, they had to be like extra large for how would they say, for men not to like it, because they're just standing there to like our pants. So they had to be like huge, and then there was this very long blouse, I would say, but like very long up to the knees, again huge, and dark color, thick material, long sleeve, and something on our head that was supposed to cover all our hair.
Wow. So when you would be stopped, did you ever try to talk with the person who was checking? Did you try to explain? Was it justified?
No, because those were the rules, and everyone had to follow. And it wasn't like, I couldn't do something about it. I couldn't make a change. And every time, I was just not appropriate, as they would say. They would just write my name, and at the end of the year, I had to, bring my family. And also, one more thing about this school, one of the great memories I have. So one day, because you asked if I did something about it. One day I go to the school, and I have some of my hair out. And because I kind of got a warning about it prior to that, they took one of those razors that you men cut your hair with. They just cut they shaved this part of my head. And like as of punishment, or whatever they called it. And they thought that makes me, cover my head a little bit more, because I didn't listen to them. And then the day after, I go to the school having this part of my head shaved by myself, having the rest of my hair out. It looked very funny, but I think I taught them a
What was their
lesson.
reaction?
They had like no word. They were speechless. The face I wanted to see, they were like,
Yeah.
I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
I
see
did ruin my hair, but worth it.
I see. Yeah, the resistance. Actually, this is very common also in Afghanistan. I remember that when I was studying at school, we had to have our hair in a certain level, and then longer than that, they would cut it, and they have cut many times my hair as well. So it's this kind of ideology of bringing people in a certain way of following certain rules, like soldiers and people in the army. And that was the concept or ideology, at least in Afghanistan, in schools, that everybody had to follow.
I think that happened also to my little brother when he was going to school. His hair one day was just longer than it had to be, and
They shaved them.
they shaved his head in the school.
And what about your classmates and the rest of the students? Were they happy to follow those rules, or were they
No.
questioning it?
Nobody was happy about it. We would like kind of bring that thing we had on our head a bit in front to cover our hair, and then we would just pass by the door and then put it back again. But again, we couldn't do something about the uniforms. We couldn't do anything about it, unfortunately. They would even sometimes check if we had mustache on still. Like, it would be like, so what did you do? And we were like it had to exist, because back then, at least, they believed that girls are not supposed to, remove their mustache if they're not married.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking about marriage, I know that you married when you were not even 18. Would you like to share about anything about that, how this happened, and just anything that you're comfortable sharing?
So it's not. Uh, it wasn't something very shocking there, unfortunately. Like so many of my classmates were also married, just like me. I was 16 when I got married, and it was something that was going on in, you know, there south of Iran. It would just happen to everyone, and because it was just everywhere, I, as a girl, for example, I would never think about that. I mean, I knew it's wrong, but it wasn't like I could question it or think about a better way because it was just the situation. And it's very difficult that when you're raised like that, you just don't learn how to think out of the box. You're just in there and you're supposed to live there. And even if you have different kind of thoughts, you never talk about them. You never express them.
Yeah, yeah. I know, for example, that at least culturally, also in Afghanistan, when you get married, it's supposed to be one of happiest day of your in your life, and everybody's happy, drinking, dancing, not drinking alcohol, but drinking food. I mean, tea and eating and so on. Were you happy? Do you remember that?
I had a kind of like up to a level I was a bit happy because I was a child, so I all I wanted was to have just a little bit of freedom. What I used to think about back then, for example, one of the things that made me happy was that I could dye my hair from now on and nobody would say why, even at the school, because I was married, so they couldn't say anything. But I always knew from day one that one day I'm gonna get a divorce. I'll be freer after that. Let's say.
I see. And then after you got married, how long did you? How long after you were married you left Iran, and did you live alone or?
Um, I left Iran after. I left Iran when I was almost 18, and we left Iran together with my ex-husband. But then I arrived here myself, and then he came, and then we still lived here together for a few years. Then, at the age of 19, like 1 year after I was in Greece, I had my son. And when my son was still very young, like he was not even 2 years old, we got a divorce, and now I'm a single mother.
I see. If you would like to share about your experiences leaving Iran and going to Turkey and then coming to Greece, how was that experience for you, and how easy or difficult was your journey?
It was very difficult. I had like literally no life experience about anything. All I have seen in my life was like my school, my gym, and my home, and I was never out there by myself or with strangers. I met some very nice people on the way. Some very kind Afghan families. There were some women that they would just call me like my daughter or something. That was very comforting. Um, it was very difficult, very scary. At some point when we were walking in the mountains, you couldn't see anything because all there was the moon light. It was very cold, and I wasn't used to cold because I was from a city that was very hot always. So even my clothes were not really for that weather. I was freezing all the way, and the I remember when I left Iran to go to Turkey, I was on the way for about 24 hours to get to a village. And during all that 24 hours, I remember very well that we had about like 40 minutes break, like to sit down. You could not stop. You couldn't rest at all because,
You had to walk, right?
we had to walk in the mountains. Like we couldn't, there was no road so that you could walk. It was
Yeah,
just on the mountains and rocks and snow. And we were not allowed to take any break because it was like full of smugglers with their guns, and they were like, if you stay behind, you're gonna be killed.
Yes, yes. Also, they were afraid of not being caught by the
Being
police
cut, exactly.
because then,
That's why they didn't want to leave anyone behind, because they
yeah,
were afraid to be caught. It was a traumatizing experience. I even saw some dead bodies on the way in the mountains that I
wow.
cannot describe it.
How long did it take you to finally arrive in Greece?
Back then, the journey was way faster because the borders were open. It wasn't like now. So it took me about 1 week, 10 days.
Okay.
10 days maybe.
But you were constantly traveling.
Yes. Like we had no stop. It was like 2 nights in a village on the border, which we stayed, like I said, with other families in I don't know the word, in a in a place they would keep their animals
Stables,
outside
yeah, stables.
there, and then to Istanbul for 2 nights again. Then one night on the point where you go with the inflatable boat from Turkey to Greece. One night there, and then Lesbos.
Yeah, yeah.
Lesbos
And
Island.
so you were traveling mainly with the families, or
Families mostly,
yeah,
yes.
children as well.
Children, some elderly people who fled Afghanistan, and they were in a very difficult condition. Like they couldn't walk, or they couldn't carry on their stuff. It was very difficult.
Yeah. And what were you thinking when you were taking all these journeys? I mean, seeing all these difficulties and experiences, like while you were walking, what were you thinking of?
I was honestly, I didn't really think about later back then. I did dream of my future before I started the journey. But then on the way, all I wanted was to get out of there. I just wanted to end and, like arrive where I'm supposed to arrive. So I didn't really think about what I'm going to do when I arrive. I just wanted to leave.
Same. And then you arrived in Moria
Yes.
refugee camp. And how was that experience, taking the rubber dinghy and then arriving in Lesbos? Was it an easy trip?
No, Lesbos was just another level of difficulty because the island was just full of asylum seekers, full of refugees who were, whether, coming to Greece to leave or coming to stay. It was, there were thousands of people there. Like when you wanted to just go from this point to 100 meters further, you would just, you know, touch so many people on the way because it was so crowded. And because back then there was this war and all this refugee crisis from all over the world. They were coming to pass by Greece, world, I mean Middle East mostly. The containers, the tents, and beds, let's say, or even blankets were for refugees of the specific countries. So when I went to ask for a blanket, for example, to sleep for the night, they said it's not for you, because I was Iranian. They say it's not for you. You didn't come from a war, so it was just given to some other
I
people.
see.
So I had to sleep in the jungle.
Yeah, I know. Yes, actually, we had this conversation again, like with my different guests of different treatment of refugees. And I remember that in 2015, 16, if you were Afghan or Syrian, you would get a better treatment considering to other refugees. What are your thoughts on that specifically? Because later we know that also like many other humanitarian organizations, they complained and they weren't happy the different treatments of with Ukrainian refugees and let's say like other refugees. So as someone that you went through that discrimination yourself for being Iranian and not Afghan, let's say, or Syrian in that time, what did it made you feel like?
I thought something better is expecting me here. I was expecting to see, I don't know. I mean, a blanket is not much to ask for. I'm not gonna complain, but it's really nothing. Like, I thought I'll find a blanket, but I didn't. And the problem, like what bothered me back then, was that they didn't try to explain, or at least do give the containers, tents, or blankets to vulnerable people. Let's say you could just say that, okay, it's for elderly or it's for children. I mean, you're young, go find yourself something, go warm up yourself. But all they said was like nationality. So if I'm a child or if I'm an old person with like sickness and I need help, you're just gonna not take care of me because I'm an Iranian and there's no war happening in my country. The war is not supposed to be just the guns, on your head. We all escaped for a better life, and I think it could be way better than that.
So after you live in Moria and then you moved on to so how did you come in Athens? If you could explain that
So
for us.
I arrived in Moria camp in Lesbos exactly on my birthday, 29th December of 2015. And that's the day I turned 18. And just got a document from there, a paper that was, I still have it. It said that I was allowed to be in Greece for the next 30 days. And because back then borders were open, so you would just take that paper to pass the country, not to stay in
I
Greece.
see.
I came to Athens with a ferry, and I after going through a very bad situation with smugglers in Athens, I went to Eliona's camp and stayed there.
You mentioned during the interview that you were pregnant and that now you have a son, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us about your experience as a single mother and how that experience for you over the years, living and working, and so how did you manage to go through all those challenges?
If I start from day one, when I was pregnant, I was working in a refugee camp in Athens, close to Athens, and I was living in a shelter. So every day I'd go from the shelter out of Athens to work, and back then I was working with mothers, babies, and pregnant women in the camp. I was a cultural mediator. I was an interpreter, and helping them with the hospital. So while I was being pregnant myself, I would take women to hospital, pregnant women specifically, for their examinations, for their tests and whatever that was needed. And I got very familiar with the situation of the hospitals. How is it to give birth? What are the situations after that? And it was scary. It was very scary, but I did it. And lucky me, I had some very good people around me that day. I have a very good friend who was my midwife. We're still friends. We were working together in the camp, but she was my midwife. Like the day I called her, she was in the hospital before I get there. So because of her, I had very good treatment in the hospital. I had a good doctor, good midwives around me. They were taking care of me. It was very scary because I was very young. I was just 19. I was calling my mom. So all I needed was I was giving birth to my own child, but I couldn't believe it, and I was like, I'm a child. Like I needed my own parents to take care of me, but I went through it. It was challenging. It was a very big and difficult thing, but it's over. And then raising a child by myself was the most difficult part because when you're pregnant, you think about giving birth, but then that's one day and over. After that, the challenges started coming, especially that I had to work full time. So when my son was just 2 months old, I had to go and work again as a cultural mediator, as an interpreter, and I worked with different organizations, different camps. Then I went to Asylum service. I went back to Moria to help people when my son was just about 3 years old, and I took him with me. So I'm proud of that experience. It was challenging, but I think I couldn't do better.
Amazing, amazing. This is a question that I ask all my guests, although that might be difficult to answer. Through all these years, the challenges and difficulties of that you went, what has been the worst experience that you went through, and that something that still you remember, something that has changed you, I would say.
Unfortunately, the things I can point on are very sad memories. So I would say the day I got divorced, that was that was a life changing event in my life. Unfortunately, I cannot really open it up, but it was a very difficult experience because for me at least, that I was always taught to listen, follow the rules, and not express myself. Unfortunately, it was very difficult to do what I wanted and go through I don't know, domestic violence, go through courts, go through hospitals to just get what I wanted. So for me, that was my biggest challenge. I think after that, life got easier and more beautiful, knowing that at least if I'm working hard all day long, it's for me and for my son, and nobody else is there to stop me from what I'm doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing these details. Although it's very personal, I can understand this, but I think it's very important for the people that they watch, that they know the challenges and difficulties that the refugees that they go through, and this is the only reason that I ask all these very personal questions. I know that now you are working in the Ministry of Migration, and you are working and helping vulnerable individuals. Could you please tell us about the current position that you have? So, what kind of what do you do, and how do you help people?
I am a mentor. I work with unaccompanied minors. I mentor unaccompanied minors. We are a team working in the Ministry of Migration and Asylum. It's called Mentorship Project. And in total, we're 6 people. It's 5 male from different countries, and me. I'm the only woman of the team for now. Our project was for the first time initiated by the Ministry of Migration and Asylum, and it is funded by EUAA, European Union Agency for Asylum.
And what do you do exactly? How do you assist people, and what are their needs?
Mostly what we do is mentoring unaccompanied minors because all of us, me and the rest of my team, all the 6 people, we have been through the journeys that unaccompanied minors experience coming to Greece. All of us have been unaccompanied and under 18 or 18, and or maybe like separated on the way. So because we have been through that, and then in Greece dealing with asylum procedure and integration, going to school or universities, going through the process of finding a job, applying. So we know how hard is that. We try to mentor them. We try to help them using our experiences and being an example for them,
I
being
see.
a role model for them.
I see. Amazing. Yes, this is a powerful thing that you do, and I know like a couple of other people that they work there. I know them; they're amazing people. And as you said, they arrived when they were minors, and now they're supporting other minors, which is great and beautiful. Thank you so much, and again for sharing your very personal experiences and that you had. At this point, I would like to show you some images, and I would appreciate to have your immediate thoughts and reaction on those. Yeah.
Okay.
So, the first image that I want to show you, it's Ukrainian refugee women that they were crossing after Russia they attacked in the country. So, what do you think about this?
You want my honest opinion? We didn't look like that. I mean, when I was crossing the border with so many other people, that's not how we looked alike, you know. We were
What do you mean?
far more broken. We were, I don't know, tired. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't, if I would see this picture somewhere else, I wouldn't, without you explaining it, I wouldn't think they were refugees. I'm happy for them that they didn't go through the same challenges and difficulties.
This is another picture that I would like to show you. Ministry of Migration and Asylum of
This is
Greece.
the background of my laptop. um, this is where I work. You want my reaction?
Yeah. So, what do you think?
Um, Before I start working there, because I went through asylum, I go through renewal of my documents every now and then. You know, it's a hard process. It takes forever. Um, I never liked them. I always, I always thought there are people there who don't work, don't do their job, and maybe don't even like refugees. I had a very negative thoughts about them. After working there now, I feel there are people I've met people who are really caring. Unfortunately, we cannot change the system, but I have a better feeling because I have seen people who actually do their job, who really care about refugees, who really do their job. And I mean, the way it's supposed to be, maybe even put so much effort in it. So, I think the problem is just the whole system that unfortunately the people that I know and who work there cannot make a huge change, but they're doing their best.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad to hear that since you work and you mentioned that people, the people they care, but unfortunately the system doesn't allow them much. This is another image that it's a Moria refugee camp where you stayed and lived.
I have never seen this picture.
It's taken from above.
Yeah, it was sad. I when I arrived there, it wasn't like this. There were no containers, no. It was totally different. But when I went back there to work, it was like that. Especially the tents over there. Seeing people in that situation was really heartbreaking, but I have been through that just a few years before, and all I could do, though it was very heartbreaking. Every day you would go there to Moria camp. It was like facing the past, facing all of that sad days you know, I spent there, and it was just very heartbreaking that I couldn't do much. I did help them. I did help people trying to do my job at its best. Sometimes I would work so many hours overtime to help them, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. I couldn't change the situation, and but people there were very nice. And when I was working there, they would just always like come to where I work, like bring me food. They would just cook in their tents. It was very nice, very sad to see that situation. But even the little food they had, they were still willing to share it with me, just to show their appreciation.
I see. This is another refugee camp, Eleonos camp,
That's
which
where I lived.
you lived.
Yeah, it looked like that when I was living there. The containers were less because it was very small when I was living there, and then when the refugees came, we just got so many. I didn't like it. The water was cold. You couldn't shower, and it was like freezing. The food was very bad. It was literally frozen. They would just bring us some bread that it was not edible. You couldn't even cut it with a knife. I don't know how I was supposed to like bite that bread. So all the days I was there, I would barely have like 3 meals a week. I was like very thin and little back then, and I got sick so many times because of the food, because of the situation. And we were in very like each container was for 8 people. It divided to two parts, like 4 people here, 4 people the other side. But when the borders closed, they just brought so many people in from the borders to each container, and of course nobody would say no because that was the situation. We were just the same people. The only difference was that we were there before, but it doesn't change anything. We were living like in one container. We were about like 20, 30 people. I didn't like Eleonas, clearly.
Yeah, tough experiences. So we are unfortunately have to wrap up our episode, but it's been very nice having you. At the last segment, I will ask you a couple of questions, and I would appreciate your brief answers. What has been the biggest injustice against you, in your opinion?
When I was going through getting the custody of my son, that's where I really felt this word injustice, because there was it was like I was fighting myself to take the custody of my son, because he's my son, and I had him, and I was raising him. I was the only one here. There was no father in the picture, but I was still going to the court for 3 years to get the custody of my child, just because the first document that was, the first asylum procedure that we went through was with his father. So just for that name, I still had to go back and forth to the court, pay so many lawyers for no reason, literally, because it was just me asking for the custody. And all of that was just in the papers because I had no right. And that was very sad, because when I was leaving Iran, I thought all of that is over. I don't, because in Iran, when you want a certain document, you have to go through husband, the father. Like you basically have no right yourself as a woman. So I thought that's over, but I went through it here. At some point, they were even like, "We have to treat you like a as a citizen of Iran. So we have to go through. We have to consider the rules of Iran to, have your case open. And I was so desperate. I was like, I'm a refugee. Seriously, I'm living here. That was horrible.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself a victim?
No, I consider myself a hero of my own story. I don't see myself as a victim.
Do you consider yourself a happy person?
Yes. There are so many things that could have been better, but I know that 10 years ago I wanted different things. I didn't want my life back then. I wanted to have a free life, decide for myself, and, feeling fulfilled, helping people. And I'm doing all of that. Maybe I didn't have the journey that I wished for, but I got where I am and I'm very happy about it.
What or who have you missed the most?
My family.
You haven't seen them.
It's been almost 9 years.
Me neither. So, what are the most valuable lessons that you have learned being a refugee? What it has taught you about the world, being human, being person?
That, I don't know, that maybe the fact that geography is just some lines on the map, and it doesn't really matter where you live, who you are, what kind of religion you have, what kind of thoughts you have. As long as you're just a human being and you follow some certain human rules, that's okay and that's enough for people to live next to each other. Back when I was living in a cage, I would call it, we wouldn't see that. I couldn't feel it. Though I was a child, I was very young, but still, I always thought like race is such a huge thing. Nationality is just such a huge thing. While now I don't really see it that way. I see people that when I see them, when I talk to them, I don't see them as foreigners. I see them as a part of me, as a family. I even have a family here. I have Greek family. I have I have some very close friends that I see them as a part of myself. Like if I don't talk to them, I feel like I'm missing something. And it really doesn't matter where they're from. It really doesn't matter with what language we communicate. Um, they're still me. I see them as a part of me. And I think that's what being a refugee taught me.
Negin Torfinezhadian, thank you so much for being here.
Difficult surname, I'm very sorry.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. I wish you success and happiness for the rest of your life.
Likewise.
And what you do. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you for the invitation.
And everyone, thank you for watching us. Have a good day.